Hi, everyone, and welcome to Changing the Narrative, a podcast created as a part of a UC Berkeley Changemaker course on understanding homelessness. And today we're here to talk about something that's often overlooked, the stigmas faced by people experiencing homelessness. My name is Ruby, and I will be your host in today's episode. And today we'll be unpacking the stigmas about people experiencing homelessness present within the UC Berkeley student body and how the housing first model can be used to reframe people's misconceptions. Joining me today are four of my classmates.
Hi everyone, I'm June.
Hi, I'm Isabella.
Hello, I'm Nathan.
And hi, I'm Sophia.
During this episode, we'll be addressing three main stigmas we found at UC Berkeley.
We will be talking about where stigmas come from, how it shows up in everyday campus life, and the role students play in reinforcing these narratives.
We will also introduce a solution-oriented approach called Housing First, which focuses on providing stable housing as the first step toward recovery, health, and independence.
By the end of this episode, we hope to shift the conversation away from judgment and more towards understanding. All right, now that we've introduced ourselves and introduced our main ideas, let's talk about our own class survey and how it revealed people's perceptions about homelessness here at UC Berkeley. Our main question we were looking at through the survey was, are people's perceptions of homelessness influenced by their housing experience or their perceived believed causes of homelessness? To explore this, we asked students about three main things. The first thing we asked was about their housing experience. We wanted to know if participants had stable housing or if they knew someone who had experienced housing insecurity. This helped us see how personal exposure to housing insecurity might shape people's attitudes towards people experiencing homelessness. Next, we looked at people's overall perception of homelessness. Using a 1 to 5 Likert scale, we asked students questions like, most homeless people are substance abusers. I feel compassion for people experiencing homelessness. I would feel uncomfortable having a person experiencing homelessness as a neighbor. Lastly, we investigated the perceived causes of homelessness. To do this, we asked students questions about different types of causes and how much they agreed on a 1 to 3 scale. Some of the questions included things such as mental health issues, lack of affordable housing, low wages, family breakdown, or social disconnection. By analyzing these responses, we were able to identify patterns in stigma and which beliefs are most common here at UC Berkeley. Now that you know how we've gathered the data, we can start unpacking the three main stigma we found among UC Berkeley students. June, do you want to take us through our first stigma?
Of course. So, the first stigma we will be exploring is the belief that most people experiencing homelessness are predominantly people that use drugs.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that only 27% of the sample disagree with the statement that most people experiencing homelessness are substance abusers.
So, the stigma is not only prevalent on the UC Berkeley campus, as shown through Ruby's survey, but it's also deeply rooted in the general public. Before learning about the relevant background information, I myself was unaware of the layers behind the stereotype and how much harm it actually causes. There is much debate surrounding substance abuse and homelessness, specifically whether it is a cause or consequence of homelessness. I'd like to first present some data that might alter how you view substance abuse and homelessness. Dr. Guy Johnson and Chris Chamberlain, in their 2008 paper, Homelessness and Substance Abuse, which comes first, investigated whether problematic substance abuse, that is, when drugs dominate a person's life at the expense of other activities and has impacts on physical, mental health, precedes or follows homelessness. They found that 15% of the sample, I repeat, only 15% of the sample, had substance abuse problems prior to becoming homelessness for the first time. Their article quotes, in the public domain, substance abuse is regularly seen as the main cause of homelessness. Yet for most people in our sample, other factors resulted in them becoming homeless. End quote. This allows us to redesign our way of thinking about homelessness, especially how individuals are often blamed for their situation, or essentially the idea that it's their fault in the situation that they are in right now. Secondly, I think it's super important to address why people experiencing homelessness often gravitate towards substances in the first place. Something that really resonated with me regarding the issue was explained by Maurice Bird, the Director of Training and Business Operation at the Harm Reduction Therapy Center. During a guest speaker event where he came to our classroom, he explained the many situational factors that people often have a hard time grasping regarding this issue. For example, how do you think is an effective, fast, and cheap way for someone living in Seattle to warm up? That's right, it's often alcohol. How do you think people experiencing homelessness who are dealing with extreme health issues usually deal with their intense pain, since it's near impossible to access proper health care? Usually, they gravitate towards substances. The same article by Dr. Guy Johnson explains the reason why Toby, a person experiencing homelessness, started using drugs. Quote, "The only way I could deal with that place, it was a rundown boarding house, was to use drugs, and I did use them. Using heroin was a way for me to hide. Just hide from everything. You take your mind off everything." End quote. It's extremely important as students to put yourself in the shoes of vulnerable people. Instead of just assuming and even blaming a person for their situation, there is statistical evidence to back up the stigma and address the reason why only some people experiencing homelessness turn to drugs. There are populations of people experiencing homelessness that are often overlooked and forgot about, such as families, mothers, sexual assault survivors, and seniors, and they usually fall under the term of substance abusers due to our system continuously failing to lead with compassion.
Thanks, June. That really helps to frame the conversation. It really is just about understanding the context behind substance use and seeing people experiencing homelessness as humans navigating an extremely difficult time.
Hey everyone, Isabella here. Before we jump back into the discussion, I want to take a quick moment to spotlight some incredible ways you can make a real impact right here on campus. If today's conversation has you thinking, okay, what can I actually do? UC Berkeley already has some amazing student-run groups doing hands-on work to support people experiencing homelessness. First up, we have the Suitcase Clinic. They serve the houseless population by providing free health and social services to individuals, and they are always looking for new volunteers. If you want something more hands-on, Habitat for Humanity in Berkeley is building and repairing housing through student-led projects. No experience needed, just show up, ready to help. Then there are the public health clubs like PHESC, MedLife, and Amigos, all running hygiene drives, street outreach, and donation efforts that directly support people living in Berkeley. And finally, shout out to USMO, the Undergrad Street Medicine Organization. They go into encampments providing food, hygiene kits, and first aid supplies. So if you've been looking for a way to turn knowledge into action, these are some of the best places to start. Get involved, meet amazing people, and be part of the work happening right in our community. All right, back to the scheduled show.
Now that we've addressed the first stigma, let's move on to another common misconception: the belief that homelessness is primarily caused by mental health issues. In the survey, mental health was a part of the environmental section of perceived causes of homelessness. And out of all the causes, environmental, social, structural, and individual, environmental had the highest average agreeance rating out of all the possible perceived causes. Nathan, do you want to share more about this?
Of course. Thank you, Ruby. So, in our survey, 34% of people agreed that homelessness was caused by mental health issues. And this is a very difficult two-way relationship between homelessness and mental health. While it is very true that some people who are experiencing mental health illnesses are much more susceptible to becoming homeless, it is neither productive nor entirely accurate to say that mental health illnesses cause homelessness. Despite this, have been some studies, for example, one that was done in England, where 26% of all the homeless people surveyed cited their previous mental health issues as reasons why they became homeless. This was higher here than it was found to be in other parts of the EU and in the US. But it is important to recognize that a lot of homeless people who do experience mental health issues are or do believe that that is one of the main reasons why they are homeless, and it has been a significant issue for them in overcoming in their challenges to get a home. A lot of people, after becoming homeless, develop mental health issues. This is pretty understandable if you can even imagine being homeless for any period of time without access to stable shelters or food, or even knowing anything about what the next day might bring to you. It is incredibly understanding why a number of people who are unhoused also suffer from many other mental health related issues, such as anxiety or PTSD. And this isn't even considering the substantial increases in the chance of assault, both physical and sexual, anyone who spends any amount of time on the streets is prone to. All of these together lead to most studies agreeing that roughly 70% of all homeless people suffer some form of mental health illness. Around 25% of these are also considered severe mental health issues, such as schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. Some of these were already present in these individuals before becoming homeless, like I mentioned before, but if you have one of these mental illnesses and then lose your home, it is often exacerbated and made much, much worse. Still, I think it is really important to look at all of this and while understand that this is a two-way street with homelessness, it is also not the main reason people become homeless. The main reason why people become homeless, by and large, almost every study that has ever looked at this has agreed, is a lack of affordable housing. This lack of affordable housing not only serves to get people into homelessness, but also continues to stop more them from getting out, quite obviously. And if they are able to get some sort of stable housing or affordable housing, just in general, to stand on their own, it has incredible effects on their mental health. A great program that does this is Housing First, which we'll talk about more in depth later. But the stability that they give to people who are experiencing homelessness has been shown to greatly increase their chances of recovery in terms of their mental health issues. It should also be noted, though, that people who experience homelessness, even after they recover and have gotten off the streets and into proper housing, even years and years down the line, are still consistently shown to be 2 or 3 times more likely to experience severe or any forms of mental illness in comparison to someone who has never been homeless at any point in their life. While some of this is in part due to these people being, once again, perhaps already having these mental illnesses before becoming homeless, a larger part is often cited to be the incredible amount of stress that being homeless puts on you during however long you are on the streets. Once again, I simply want to stress the fact that you cannot simply chalk it up to mental health issues for when talking about why people are homeless. By giving people the support and housing that they need, we can help them recover mentally, and just as we can help them get back on their feet financially.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like it's so easy for people just not to think about how difficult being homeless really is. But the next stigma that we wanted to talk about was something we saw come up a lot in our survey, which was the way students often ignore or avoid people experiencing homelessness. Sophia, can you tell us more about this one?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our survey, we asked students to respond to the statement, quote, I ignore homeless people, end quote. And the results were pretty striking, actually. In fact, 28.6% agreed, and another 17.1% strongly agreed. Now, together, that's 46%. Nearly half of the students who surveyed feel uncomfortable having an unhoused person as a neighbor. And again, the numbers told a similar story where 18.6% agreed and 14.3% strongly agreed. So that's about 33%. 1 out of 3 students who said that they would be uncomfortable living next to someone who is unhoused. Now, those numbers don't necessarily mean people are cruel, right? It's not what we're trying to say here at all. They just do show that there is a lot of discomfort. This kind of avoidance usually comes from fear, uncertainty, or just the stereotypes that people pick up, and not necessarily a lack of empathy. But ignoring people has real impact. It makes people who are already isolated feel even more invisible. And reinforces the idea that there's some kind of divide between us and them. But they are part of our community. They are students. They are workers. They are parents. They're veterans. They're our neighbors. There are people who experience setbacks that could easily happen to anyone. So debunking this stigma isn't just about correcting a misunderstanding, but it's about widening our senses as a community. When we drop that us versus them mindset, it becomes clear that everyone is on the same spectrum of vulnerability and resilience. Housing status is not a personality trait, it's just a condition that someone is experiencing. Seeing people as part of us, and then once we shift that mindset, it becomes easier to replace avoidance with acknowledgement and empathy.
Thank you, Sophia. I think what you said really highlights how much the stigma comes from a simple habit, rather than interactions, and how meaningful even small shifts in behavior can be.
I want to take a moment to talk about something most people never notice, but it deeply affects those experiencing homelessness. And we call that hostile architecture. Hostile architecture refers to design choices in public spaces that are intentionally created to keep unhoused people from resting, sitting, or finding shelter. You've probably seen it. Benches with extra bars on it so no one can lie down, spikes built into flat surfaces, rocks placed under bridges, or sprinklers that turn on at night to drive people away. Those designs aren't accidents. They were built with a purpose of pushing people out of sight. And the truth is, most housed people never realize these features exist because they're not meant for them. But for someone who's without stable housing, hostile architecture makes daily survival much difficult. It eliminates the few safe spaces where someone can rest, recover, or simply exist without being moved along. And here's the important part. This kind of design doesn't reduce homelessness. It doesn't provide services, support, or solution. It only hides the issue and increases stigma by treating people as problems to be managed rather than community members deserving of dignity. Recognizing hostile architecture helps us understand how the environment itself can enforce stigma. It shows how cities prioritize appearance over humanity, and how small design decisions can send a powerful message about who is welcome and who isn't.
Now that we have addressed these stigmas, let's briefly talk about an effective model that policies should greatly consider when implementing effective solutions for people experiencing homelessness.
Housing First is a homeless assistance approach that provides permanent housing, helping people experiencing homelessness pursue personal goals and improve their quality of life. So, this model is guided by the priority of people having access to necessities, which includes food, a place to live before getting jobs, or treating substance use issues. It's also based on the understanding that people's choices are valuable in housing and selective and supportive services. If the client has that choice, this would lead to more successful outcomes. There are many models that don't follow this guideline, and Housing First was pretty amazing because it showed that you don't need things like being sober to access housing. And this is really important to solving homelessness.
That's right, June. The Housing First model is proven to be quite effective in helping people self-improve. Statistically, it has decreased homelessness by around 88%, which is such a high number, and it also has improved housing stability by 41%. And this is directly compared to treatment first and abstinence programs where homelessness and house stability is at a lower percentage. And not only that, but the Housing First model assists those with mental health challenges and has shown to improve their mental health more than any other programs by providing a more stable environment. Under the Housing First model, studies have shown that it helps reduce substance abuse and it breaks the homeless jail cycle. So, June, the big question is, why are we discussing the Housing First model so in depth?
We essentially wanted to talk about this effective model to urge everyone listening right now to rethink how we address homelessness, not through punishment, stigmas, or unrealistic expectations, but through approaches that actually and statistically work. It is important as students to research about your local policies regarding homelessness and help advocate for policies that are actually effective in our government.
And that wraps up today's episode. And we want to remind you guys that the stigmas we talked about today do not just shape opinions, they impact policy, resources, and ultimately influence real people's lives. It's important that we meet people where they are, trusting that everyone deserves stability and respect. Our hope is that after listening, you can carry these insights into your own conversations, classrooms, and community. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for being a part of the effort to change the narrative. Comment,
Like,
Like,
comment,
comment, and
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 subscribe.
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 Go Bears!